All right, welcome back. Today we're diving into a pretty wild head-to-head battle between two massive AI models. One of our sources put them through the ringer. They're calling them GPT-5 and Grok 4 for this comparison, to see which one is actually worth using. And let me tell you, the results? They are not what you might think.
Wow. Okay. That's a pretty heavy statement to lead with, right? Completely failed every single test. That really sets the stage for what turned out to be, well, a surprisingly one-sided fight. So what on earth happened when these two AI giants actually faced off?
Because at the end of the day, that's the real question, isn't it? It's what we all want to know. When you're spending your hard-earned money on a tool, you expect it to deliver. Our source was determined to get a straight answer here. And their findings, they're pretty eye-opening.
Okay, so let's get into it. First things first, let's properly introduce the two AIs that are about to go toe-to-toe in this showdown. So, in one corner, we have the model our source calls GPT-5. The big deal with this one is its supposed thinking mode, the idea that it actually plans and thinks before it writes. And in the other corner, we have Grok 4, which came out of the gate with a ton of hype, mostly focused on how well it scored on all these industry benchmarks. The big question is, do those fancy scores actually mean anything in the real world?
To figure that out, you can't just give them a simple quiz. No, our source threw them into what they called the coding gauntlet. 5 really tough head-to-head coding challenges, designed to see if they could build real working apps from just a prompt. First up, build a complete game from scratch called Pixel Ninja Dash. And this was no simple task. The prompt asked for everything: a ninja character, robots to fight, a cool parallax background, wall jumping, sound effects, the whole 9 yards. We're talking about a full-on project, not just a little script.
So, how did they do? Well, it was brutal. Grok 4 was a total, absolute failure. The code it spat out was so full of errors that it was completely dead on arrival. It wouldn't even load. Now, GPT-5, it also failed to make a playable game, but it was a very different kind of failure. The game actually loaded. You could see the ninja, the interface was there. The problem was, the character just fell right through the floor. So yeah, both failed, but one produced a buggy but recognizable game, while the other produced nothing.
All right, on to test number 2. This time they had to create a match 3 candy game. You know the type. And again, the standards were high. It needed to look professional, have shiny graphics, nice animations, and, actually work.
And the results here were, wow. It was night and day. GPT-5's version actually looked like a real game. It had these professional, shiny candy sprites, an animated background, a working timer. The main swap mechanic was a little glitchy, but it looked legit. Grok 4's attempt? Yikes. It was just flat, colored squares on a boring gray background. The logic was totally broken. The source said it looked like a first-day coding project, and honestly, that's being generous.
I think you're probably sensing a theme here, right? This wasn't a fluke. As the tests kept coming, a very clear, very consistent pattern started to show up, and it was not a good look for Grok 4.
And that pattern just kept going. For a jungle run game, GPT-5's loaded but had a bug that made it end instantly. Grok 4's code was just nonsense. It was mixing Python and JavaScript syntax together. Then for a VR landing page, it gave back a page with white text on a white background. It was so spectacularly bad that our source didn't even bother running that test on GPT-5. That's how lopsided it got. So what in the world is going on? Why was the performance gap this huge? This is where we get into the why. The source really dug into the technical differences to try and explain what we're seeing.
And the answer seems to boil down to this concept our source calls GPT-5's thinking mode. The idea is that instead of just immediately spewing out code, it actually stops for a moment, it plans the structure, it considers the edge cases, it thinks about the architecture, and then it starts writing. That little bit of planning seems to be the secret sauce.
This table here breaks it down perfectly. Look at context. GPT-5 gets the vibe. If you ask for a pixel art game, it understands what that means aesthetically. Grok 4 just takes words literally and misses the whole point. Code quality. GPT-5 writes complete, modern code. Grok 4 writes a fragmented mess with errors all over the place. And maybe the most important part, complexity.
GPT-5 integrates features so they actually work together. Grok 4 just kind of jams them all in and hopes for the best, which causes a whole lot of bugs.
And this quote from the final test, which was building a crypto landing page, just says it all. The difference was insane. Grok's version looked like a scam site from 2003, while GPT-5's looked like a real Web3 project. You can't get a more damning comparison than that.
Okay, so this huge difference in performance is one thing, but the story gets even crazier when you bring money into the equation. Let's talk about the financial side of all this.
So what do you think it costs to get access to Grok 4's top-tier service? You know, the one that gives you white text on a white background. According to the source, it's a jaw-dropping $300 a month. Just let that number sink in.
And now look at this. Here's the side-by-side. You're paying around $20 a month for GPT-5 Plus. You're paying $300 for Grok 4's best offering. That is 15 times the price for what these tests show are consistently worse and often completely unusable results. It's just astounding.
So, after all that, what's the big takeaway? What's the final verdict? Well, our source doesn't just leave you with the data. They give a very clear, very direct plan of action based on these results.
And the action plan is about as blunt as you can get. Step 1. Stop paying for Grok. Just stop. Step 2. Go use the GPT-5 free tier and test it on your actual work. See it for yourself. Step 3. Put in the time to learn how to prompt it correctly to get good results. And Step 4, maybe the most important lesson of all. Trust the results you can see with your own eyes, not the marketing hype and not the fancy benchmark scores.
And really, that leaves us with this one big question we all need to ask ourselves. In a world that is just drowning in AI hype, are we choosing our tools based on that hype, or are we judging them based on the actual, tangible results they produce? Because as this whole showdown makes crystal clear, the answer to that question could save you a ton of time, a whole lot of frustration, and frankly, a lot of money.